Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. Dave Petzo joining us. The Petzo Center, Petzo Financial, and looking to redeem himself from last week here on this program. It was, we just kind of sat there and kind of killed 30 minutes. And
it was a flat.
It's been a while since we've had a flat radio segment.
I know, and then it had to play twice because it played on Saturday.
Well, I
think you got to pick up your game, Kevin.
I really appreciate you bringing that up.
You are the professional, after all.
Right. You are just here to provide content. It is up to me to find that content, and I have failed the audience repeatedly, thanks to you, to remind everybody of that. Okay, let's start with this one. We've got the trade war going on. The Chinese are attacking us. We're fighting back.
Yep.
The president is going to go see the Russian leader. He's going to go to NATO, and you have a lot of people, primarily from Democratic sources, that say our allies are mad at us because of these tariffs. Now, we're going to do a little prevention here. We're going to proactively give the answer that Dave Petzo is going to give to try and hamstring him from saying, who cares, everything's great. But you have a challenging week on from the stock market because people don't have the same enthusiasm that you do with this trade war.
Yeah, I think that we have to look at this as a trade war to say simply, look, are we supposed to sit back and let the Chinese continue to steal our intellectual property and do nothing about it? The answer, if you're a liberal, is yes, of course you are. If you are, or should we allow the Chinese to have such a huge trade deficit when they charge 3 times the amount of tariffs in their country than we do, and still call it free trade? Of course not. It's not. That's just not the case, and we have to fight back, and we have to fight back against, as it turns out, all of our allies, because our trade deficit with all of them is large, and that's good. Don't get me wrong. Now, look, I'm a free trader, and I understand the whole economic give and take. It's great to have a small trade deficit. It totally is. But it's time to renegotiate these deals, including NAFTA, and now that they have a new president in Mexico, it looks like we've got a very real opportunity to renegotiate that as well. So I think all in all, this is a classic, if you will, negotiation or grandstanding, but particularly from the Chinese. They have so much to lose. The difference is we're dealing with a country that's a dictatorship, and so they can simply wait it out. It's not like they have midterm elections coming up. It's not like that they have to satisfy the courts. They are the courts. They are if they will, they are the dictators in this country. So they decide how it works. And if they want to wait with a bad economy, their market's down 25% since this started. If they want to wait through a bad economy, they can afford to. I don't think they want to do it, though, and get all the natives restless. They've got somebody they can deal with in Trump as well.
They don't get restless in China because they have the commies there. They run everything, and they tell you not to be restless.
They do. That's exactly right. But but still, you have over 1 billion people there, 1.3 billion. That's a fairly substantial number of people that could really not like what's going on if they don't have jobs, if the economy sinks, those kinds of things. And that's what the Chinese are most concerned about. Keep people happy, keep the economy growing.
Right. On the other hand, again, when the government runs the economy, it's a little different.
Yep.
A lot of people, and look, I've been a big anti-NAFTA guy.
Yep.
For many years. You have. I agree with you, but a lot of people may not agree with Dave Petzo or Kevin Miller. So, USA Today has a headline here: How President Trump's Chinese tariffs affect American consumers. And we'll start with the first one here: farming equipment. The American tariffs on Chinese goods affect various forms of farming machinery. Examples include poultry incubators and different types of dairy machines. If those tariffs make it more expensive for American farmers to operate, it could theoretically translate into price increases. But farmers are already facing stiff competition that could force them to absorb any increases in machinery prices. We've heard that where we've had news reports about Idaho dairy, Idaho ranchers, Idaho farmers being very concerned about this because we do export a lot of food to the Chinese.
We do. And it is an important trade partner for Idaho. It really is. Everybody is going to be impacted in one way or another, but in particular, certain industries are if there is a trade war. It is a concern, Kevin. We don't want to see it. Nobody wants to see it. Economically, it makes no sense. It's bad for the whole global economy. But at the same time, part of the negotiation is we're going to simply hurt the people in the red states. That's what they're trying to do. It's pretty obvious. It's very pointed. Companies like Micron got targeted, and I'm sure we'll talk about that some more, but they got targeted by the Chinese this past week. They talk about being banned because of a case against them in a Chinese law or Chinese court. I didn't even know there were Chinese courts,
Well,
right?
they rigged the system, though. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
what, a year or two ago, the Chinese tried to buy them. Now they're trying to litigate against them.
Correct, and they tried to steal their technology.
Right.
They got caught. I mean, there's just nothing more to it. There's two Chinese guys in a Taiwanese jail because they were caught stealing for the Chinese.
Well, if you keep everything over here and you'd have the Petso police,
That's right.
the
They
probability...
get away with nothing.
That's right. The probability of that would be minimal.
Because by golly, we wouldn't even hire any Chinese in there. There's no way.
Well, yes, exactly.
Actually, they weren't Chinese anyway. They were Taiwanese. They were obviously they were just
we're all about
paid by
hiring
the
Americans.
Chinese. Yes.
Not to be interpreted by that, but again, that's for national security purposes. Dave Petso with us, the Petso Center, Petso Financial. And, a lot of this is tongue-in-cheek, but it's very serious when you take a look at Micron and stuff, and we'll get to that. So, impacted number 2 is motor vehicles.
Yep.
Right now, it's funny. Take a look at the evolution.
Mm-hmm.
When we were growing up, Japanese vehicles, the Datsun, the Toyota,
Yep.
they were jokes.
Yes.
Now they're mainstream. And remember when Hyundai and Kia first came to America. Now, mainstream cars.
Yeah, that's right. When we were young adults, the Japanese were on top of the world. They were
Exactly.
destroying Detroit. Yes.
So here's another one. China cars. And I'm going, no one's ever going to buy Chinese cars. However, you think about it, foreign manufacturers and the Germans as well have done very well here. So here we go. Right now there are a few vehicles imported from China to the U.S. General Motors imports the Buick Envision crossover, for example. GM spokesman confirmed that Envision is subject to Trump's import tariffs. At this point, we are still assessing the impact of tariffs and have no information to share about price increases. Volvo, which is weird, a Swedish company, they manufacture in China. They're owned by a Chinese automaker, Geely. They weren't available. So the threat is a 25% tariff on European Union-made vehicles in retaliation to the EU's longstanding 10% tariffs on American-made cars could lead to the average vehicle price increase of about $5,000. So there you have it. It could impact the on-fire, or maybe not as on-fire, car business. Your thoughts?
Right. No, if we have an all-out trade war, and cars are the thing that if you're German and you now have huge tariffs in the United States, that's a big problem for Germany.
Of course, you have the BMW plant in South Carolina.
Correct.
I mean, astutely, even before these tariffs came in, the Japanese and the Germans and the Koreans were so smart to build these plants to employ Americans.
Yep.
So how do you think that plays out, for Buick or GM or Volvo or any of these other?
No, there'll be wars back and forth. So it's not going to play out well for American-made companies either. And nothing. A trade war never plays out well. It's really government at its worst, meaning we are in a circumstance where government's dictating winners and losers. That becomes political. It is full of corruption. All those things that are going to come together in this. So I understand people's concern about this, and I understand the news cycle. We're not allowed to have time to work this through. Think about this. For decades, we've been a complete rollover. You didn't like NAFTA? How long's NAFTA been around?
Right.
How about Clinton? Right? Has it ever been changed? The answer is no. It's not been changed. Are we supposed to not negotiate it? We are supposed to not negotiate it if, A, the President of the United States is Donald Trump. If you're a liberal, you can't take time to do this, and we have a news cycle that has a lifespan of a mayfly. And so we just go through this like we've got to solve these problems today. These take time. It's going to take time, and these are tough negotiations. I don't believe for a second we're going to have a trade war. The market is doing okay, Kevin, because it doesn't believe for a second we're going to have a trade war. It is concerning in different areas because they are targeting those people that are Trump supporters to try to get them to put pressure on Trump.
Right. Our great friend Dave Petso joining us here. Now we have, here's something that's fascinating. You know, we've got the F-35, the F-35A.
Yep.
That's got Chinese parts in it.
Yeah.
So are they going to put tariffs on
their-
our defense stuff?
Yeah, I suppose they might let that one go.
I imagine. Okay, healthcare equipment. We don't buy a lot, but at one company, they do purchase small component inventories from China. There'll be pressure on the cost of goods if U.S. tariffs are applied to Chinese manufactured goods. Of course, any reason to raise your healthcare cost, they'll gladly do it.
They'll be happy to do it, right, yes. And, of course, Medicare will pay for it. Because Medicare is a magic thing. It's not really us.
Right, exactly. Products made with steel and aluminum. The EU imposed retaliatory tariffs on American motorcycles in response to the president's steel and aluminum tariffs. Milwaukee-based Harley-Davidson said it would cost an extra $2,200 per bike in America. Let's see. Harley will absorb the hit and move some manufacturing abroad. And this is, the heartbeat of America, steel and aluminum.
Yeah, it is. It was at one time. It certainly was. We were the steel manufacturer of the world, and when manufacturing died here, and it did, and it has been coming back. Part of the reason, for example, that people manufacture automobiles in the United States is because it's cheaper, Kevin. It's not just because they don't want to worry about tariffs. Of course, they do want to have people that are not as upset about them importing so many cars.
Right.
But at the same time, it's because we've made some big changes, and with natural gas, you can really power these plants with very inexpensively, cheapest in the world. Labor laws down south are a lot better than they are up north, and so that's why one of the reasons it boomed.
People are concerned that their the cost of beer cans are going to rise.
0.1 cents per can.
That's what I hear.
That's a horror show, huh?
And manufacturing cars in America are going to cost more.
They are going to cost a little bit more. That's true. But the idea that beer is going to cost more at 0.1 cents per can.
Boy, that's some research.
Yeah.
You know your beers.
It
or
came
at least
out.
The cans.
Actually, it was Wilbur Ross gave us all that right out of the chute.
I think you should just say,
I came up with
the
it.
Almighty Petso
Just go with
research.
it.
Yes.
Yeah, the Petso Research Institute.
Exactly.
Okay. I like it.
PRI, yes. All right. More coming up next. KIDO Talk Radio. Always the drama, the intrigue with Dave Petso here. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. So locally, what do we have here? The big Micron story.
Yeah, that was a big story. Yeah, it is from a local perspective. That's and it's a big deal. But I think it's again it's a temporary injunction. I think the timing is pretty obvious that it's part of the whole trade war scenario. But again, we got to give these things time to play out. This is, to me, it's just amazing how we just cannot allow any time to resolve problems that have been festering for decades. Decades. Are we supposed to have the Chinese just steal intellectual property? Are we supposed to allow them to have 3 times the amount of tariffs? Are we supposed to have $500 billion worth of deficits every year? I mean, it's just absurd what they give. And then everybody's all running around and worrying about this part or that part is going to cost more money. It's got to be part of a negotiation. It's going to take time, and I believe that we will win if we are reasonably patient.
Well,
win is not. Win means we have fairer trade. That's all. It's not like we are now up on them.
But here's the other situation. You've got Little Rocket Man returning. A big situation over the weekend. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. It was strange. The North Koreans said, "Did you sleep at night?" and trying to be tough guys with him. Then he says everything's great. Then they call him a gangster. And you have to wonder if the Chinese are manipulating this because of this trade war going on. Mm-hmm. Again, getting North Korea into play. Obviously, that has huge ramifications for national security and, to a lesser degree, but equally as important, the markets. You have something going down in North Korea, that's going to be an issue.
It will be. It could be an issue, no doubt about it. It's particularly an issue to some of our big allies and trading partners like Japan. They're very close to Korea, and they're arch enemies. People know so little about history anymore. It's amazing to me, but people don't even think about what happened in World War II unless it was directly, if they know anything about World War II, and I'm not sure they teach it in school anymore, but certainly back then they were arch enemies prior to us entering the war. Was the Koreans and the Chinese, and there's a lot of history there. They still hate the Japanese, so it's a big problem over there.
So that could cause some issues here. That could be a ripple. Your thoughts on the strength of the market? Are the good times going to continue to roll?
Kevin, I don't think there's any reason.
I know you're not a naysayer.
No, I know.
I don't want you to put you in the negative Nelly
right
camp.
You do too. You want me to one time say that. But you've known me during the good times, and I think that the thing that we forget about
and the bad,
we started off, and you and I started off in the bad.
Right. You were optimistic.
And I was optimistic we would find our footing, and we did. But the thing is that people trade too much and worry about short-term things way too much, and that's always been the problem. My job, as I see it, really, is not just to be a wild-eyed optimist. That's crazy. But to see the world clearly for what it really is, which is an abundant and a place that solves our problems, all of them. It's a growing place, and everybody lives longer, happier, healthier, safer lives. But if you watch the news cycle, you would think that was just the opposite. We don't think the world is safer, but it's demonstrably safer. It's not even close to anywhere near as dangerous as it was 100 years ago, let alone 500 years ago. It's so people don't starve to death. Kevin, when you and I were kids, all of Africa or half of Africa would starve every year because there was some kind of major drought. And that just isn't happening anymore. And we just kind of like, well, that's not a big deal. The Soviet Union implodes. All of these things are important things where we get caught up in a news cycle and think every little kid that disappears, there must be such danger lurking everywhere, pedophiles around every corner about to grab our kids. It's the news cycle that just drives us crazy, and it makes us think in the stock market that the world isn't growing, and it is. And the world is growing, and the market will grow.
Eventually, the good times will be over.
And then they will start again.
More on that in a minute. Traffic and weather together.
Everett.
All right, back with Dave Petzo here. We still have some issues facing us in the Treasure Valley. More people moving in. Mm-hmm. A strain on the infrastructure continues. Affordable housing. I mean, we're running out of places to go where you get more for your money. I hear this all the time.
Yep.
And a friend of mine, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. You're going to love this. This savvy entrepreneur was looking at land in Meridian, okay? Got it for a reasonable price. Now he's selling it in the millions. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Is now the time to buy because we have the fear of missing out? We talk about that with the markets, but what about with land and such? Or maybe keep your powder dry.
I have a hard time with on real estate because you have such high taxes. It's and that's a real barrier to hanging on to property, is because you're paying taxes every year and it's producing nothing until you turn it into a development. So those are tough, long cycle projects. But for me, some of the boom is going to be diminishing, but I don't know why we would think it's ending, Kevin. Will it slow down? Will it be harder to make money, flipping and all those other things? I think it's going to be imminently harder, because more and more people are doing it, and we have had that initial surge, if you will. But still, available housing, as you point out, is still not affordable housing, and available housing there's just not a lot out there.
Right, but 5 years ago, Meridian was way out. Now it's Caldwell.
And now it's Caldwell. And CUNA. And CUNA is going to boom as well. That'll be the next bedroom community, in my opinion, that's going to boom. But people don't want to live there.
A lot of people are talking Emmett.
Yeah, and that's another good point, because it's about the same distance the other direction, isn't it?
It is, but I go back to this. I'm thinking we're not building single-family homes in the $200,000 range. We're building 3, 4. Look, I don't want to say I was doing some speculating, but I was looking at houses around Lake Lowell.
Okay.
Just for giggles. Mm-hmm. You got homes around Lake Lowell in Nampa going for 1.3, and I'm not talking thousands. I'm talking million. 1.3 million.
Yep.
Now you got those a similar degree in Eagle, but you've got like 20 acres. But around Lake Lowell, not even beachfront or lakefront, you're talking 1.3, and these are extravagant houses.
Yes, yeah, they are.
But you wonder, is this just for the Warren Buffetts that are retiring here?
There are quite a few people that are doing exactly that, Kevin. The amount of money that's come to Idaho, that's in the world, is just, to me, is amazing. And what has been created because of the stock market, real estate, all these things that have come up over the past 20 years is why I say, when people say, well, what's going on with the market? What's this and this? I simply go, how do you stay bullish? The world is growing, and there's so much money out there, and it's going to find its way to investment assets.
I'm with you, but I would think that more people would be in the $200,000 and you and I talked about this for many, many years, the homes ranging from $150,000 to $250,000.
Yep.
To me, that's the sweet spot in the economy, but the builders, and gosh knows, they know something because they're building them. They're not building them because they like to build these massive homes
that aren't selling. Right. You're exactly right.
And by the way, if you're ever on Chinden, that road that goes out?
Yeah.
Chinden, people say that'll be, whether it's the next Fairview or what have you. I look at a couple of years ago, last year, they were it was a watermelon farm. They were
right.
And now it's a subdivision.
Everywhere you look.
Right. So you still have to wonder. People are moving in. Where is the affordable housing thing? And I hate to sound like a bleeding heart.
Yeah.
But you do have a segment of that are good Idahoans that love this community, that want to be here.
Yep.
And we're always worried about kids leaving. Where are those folks going to find homes?
Right. They are, like all of us, going to get starter homes, whether they were 800 square foot, 900 square foot.
Those things are going for like $200,000-300,000 in Boise.
They
now.
Absolutely are, but they're not going for $200,000 or $300,000 if you move on out. They're just not.
You're an advocate of moving
out in the hinterlands of Star and all. I'm not an advocate of everybody going out, but
not in Star anymore. But that's the thing. Star and Middleton.
Yeah,
those homes are like $300,000-400,000.
The new ones are.
The new ones, and I guess they say they call them the used homes. What
used
is that
homes?
about? Yeah.
Okay. But if you have a smaller one, I mean, we all started in a small, dumpy little house or apartment or whatever. And it's just one of those things where, do I think that all of our kids need to have affordable housing in downtown Boise? Of course not. That's ridiculous. Do they have to commute? Yes. If you want to buy a house, commute. If you don't, then live in an apartment as long as you want to. But look, Kevin, people are moving here because there are jobs, because it is vibrant. Yes, that brings in a whole new set of problems, just like all the big cities, San Francisco, Seattle, etc. All of them have housing or affordable housing problems. We all do, and I'm not diminishing that. We should try to solve those problems. But we have to recognize, too, that if you want to live downtown, you want to live in the corridor, it's going to be expensive.
It'll have to be continued.
No, I'm just getting rolling here.
I know.
You told me, get fired up today, all these things earlier. Now you're just going to cut me off.
That's how it works, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
All right.
I failed you once again.
But I enjoyed it very much today.
Next week, we will talk about that. Dave Petzl will address those issues and more this Saturday, 8 to 10 on Money Matters. Dave, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning.
KIDO Talk Radio out to Capitol Hill. Rachel Sutherland joining us from Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Rachel, here we thought, Monday kind of, takes you a while to warm up, get ready to work the week of the bullpen. And then we have this prime time, not The Apprentice, but a prime time special on the fate of the Supreme Court. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yes, this is going to be a 9 p.m. Eastern announcement of the president's pick to replace the retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy. And it looks like, Kevin, that he has narrowed his choices down to 4. We're hearing a lot about Judge Amy Coney Barrett of Chicago. She has become the 4th female justice sitting on the high bench. She's also a devout Catholic, which has really gotten the attention of both faith-based groups. That abortion is important to them, and the other side that is concerned about a potential Roe versus Wade change. There's also a couple of judges who are on the list who clerked for Anthony Kennedy, Judge Raymond Kethledge being one of them, the other one, Brett Kavanaugh of Washington, D.C. And then over the weekend, there was a lot of buzz about Judge Thomas Hardiman. If you'll remember, he was sort of the number 2 to Justice Neil Gorsuch last year. He's interesting in that he put himself through law school by driving a taxi cab.
The president seems to have an affinity for that. Then you have some other folks that are close to the president's sister. You've got, kind of an outsider, I guess now, Senator Mike Lee. I guess it comes down to if the president wants to pick a fight, he goes with Barrett, depending, no matter what Mitch McConnell says.
Yeah, I agree. I think so because of her views, at least in the past, on abortion. When she was at Notre Dame, some of the papers that she wrote in that kind of thing. I mean, when it comes to this, usually at a confirmation hearing, you're not supposed to ask you direct questions about this kind of thing, but oftentimes lawmakers will look back into the past, whether it's previous rulings or things that have been written before. So there is concern among both sides about this issue. And when it comes to Roe versus Wade, though, the way it would probably play out if it went that far is that some of these states with the really restrictive abortion laws, like the 6-week heartbeat bill, that would be appealed to the Supreme Court. They could either take it up or not. And if they were to rule, okay, the state can have this law, what they would essentially be doing is sending the issue of abortion back to the states.
Which is where it was before Roe versus Wade.
Mm-hmm. And it's similar to the gay marriage fight because it's almost in reverse. Because remember, it used to be that, okay, certain states would have the right to, marry same sex, and then it went up to the Supreme Court, and then they said, oh, this is the law of the land across the nation. So this would be just simply going in reverse. I mean, as far as I know, I don't know of a scenario, but I'm not a legal scholar in which the justices would just simply strike down Roe versus Wade. I think it'd be more a matter of sending the issue back to the states.
Rachel Sutherland joining us, Fox News Radio, KIDO Talk Radio. So as someone who covers Congress, this has all the intrigue of a Grisham novel because you have these red state Democrats that we've heard so much about, some of them really concerned about being reelected. Some of them voted for Justice Gorsuch the last time. And then you have others that, are looking at Republicans in kind of purple states. How do you think this plays out with the red state Democrats and some prominent female Republicans?
Well, that's the question. And some on the left are lobbying more moderate female Republicans like Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And they're trying to get them to maybe change their minds and do things differently. So, it's really hard to tell whether or not that will actually happen. It is a slim margin here, 49-51. As you know, with Justice Gorsuch, they got rid of the Supreme Court nominee filibuster, so it's just going to be a simple majority vote, making it easier for Republicans. But it could go, if they were able, Democrats by that, if they were able to pluck away a Republican or so, it could get dicey. But I think when it really comes down to it, it's going to be a fight. But I think ultimately the president's pick will be seated.
Well, it'll tell a lot about the president, again, whether or not he wants to pick a fight or just go with the path of least resistance. And you have people in the Republican camp worried about another David Souter or someone even say a Justice Roberts. So you never know. As you know, Rachel, once you get on the Supreme Court, you can do whatever you want.
Well, exactly. And that's the reason why it's so critical and so many people watch. And I don't need to tell you, a lot of folks voted for President Trump based on the Supreme Court issue alone. And they got their pick with Justice Gorsuch. I think that was a pretty popular pick among conservatives. And they're looking for another kind of well-rounded conservative. I don't know if the president will go with someone real controversial like Judge Amy Coney Barrett. She is a bit controversial in her views on abortion. He may go with somebody a little less controversial, but then again, it's almost impossible to predict this president. We do know that about at this hour that he's going to be meeting with folks at the White House to talk about this, and he said he might even make a decision by noon. But we're all, held in suspense until tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern.
And we'll be tuned in, Rachel. A little overtime for you tonight.
Yeah, I'll definitely be checking it out and be ready in the morning to chat about it. So prime time tonight, it's the big moment.
Rachel, thank you.
Thanks.
Rachel Sutherland breaking it down for us. Here are the nominees at 580-5436. You got Brett Kavanaugh. He served President Bush. A lot of conservatives don't like him. Raymond Kethledge, another top contender, Amy Coney Barrett, and Thomas Hardiman. Are any of us really experts on the Supreme Court? Most likely not. But if you want to talk about that, 580-5436. 580 KIDO, the cover of the paper today. Idaho could benefit from bill in Congress to allow hemp farming. Oh, somewhere Liberal Steve is going, oh, I wasted my call too early. It's been nearly 20 years since former Idaho legislator Tom Trail began the drumbeat for industrial hemp. The 8-term Moscow representative tried repeatedly to convince his legislative colleagues to support the crop. He introduced at least 5 resolutions and memorials over the years, urging Congress to recognize the difference between hemp and marijuana. However, the U.S. Senate and perhaps Congress as a whole may now be prepared to go where the Idaho legislature feared to tread. They're looking at removing all federal restrictions on hemp cultivation, co-sponsored by Senator Wyden of Oregon and others. It needs to, first, the Senate needs to approve the bill, and it will move on from there. So we have the hemp issue. But one issue that is fascinating to me, I don't know about you, but over the weekend, and our friend Dave Petzo was telling me about camping in the wilderness. To me, that seems like expending a lot of energy. You know, you go, you got to hike, you got to fish, you got to do all these things, and that's great. But for other of us, we'll read or write, or some of us justify our existence by putting in some extra time at work. And in between that, I was watching this ESPN piece. And on it, they were describing the parents, I suppose, of a famous athlete. And in this piece, they described how his parents in 2003 broke into the country illegally. Except they didn't say break into the country illegally. They romanticized how these people walked in the desert for 2 or 3 days, how they were looking out for the border people because the border agents are bad. And they were worried about the border agents. And then they went to California and, to their credit, worked their blank off. And now their kid is a famous star, apparently. Otherwise, why would ESPN be covering it? But it was fascinating to me how the American liberal sports media portrayed people coming to America illegally as something noble. And we see that all the time. This family situation where you have families broken up and now the government is being vilified for this. Well, if you don't want your families broken up, don't break the law. And it's just this huge cultural thing. You see it with people that are in their 20s or 30s. They're much more progressive, and I suppose we could blame Obama for that. Maybe it's where you work, where you have that hidden conservative rebellion, that hidden conservative thought process that you keep it to yourself because no one wants to be name-called. But I thought to myself, and we've said this about ESPN, and that's why they're no longer in town, because nobody likes listening to liberal radio. You think about, and it's funny, when I listen to ESPN, well, you're listening to a bunch of libs. They don't talk sports. So I'm thinking about this, and here you have this American media company not reporting, but romanticizing about breaking into the country illegally. And we all want people to have opportunities. But what the liberal media neglects to say is when you have people coming into the country illegally, they're taking away opportunities for people that are born here. The construction industry, for example. The skilled industry, for example. Well, I can get such and such to do it. He's from such and such. Well, does he have a green card? No, but I don't care. I want my brick pathway done. I had a gentleman that I met in church many years ago in Pennsylvania, a brick mason, like our friend Terry. He laid brick all the time. He was run out of business because of the illegals. And somehow, if you bring that up, you're a xenophobe, you're a nationalist, you're a racist, you're a bad person. Well, just like our own wallets and our own individual budgets, the country has a budget. And I was wondering how many people would be moved by this story. It was a wonderful story, but from the liberal perspective was so skewed. And I don't know if you just even have, just a sports network where they just do sports. But again, the back channel indoctrination that continues here. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So a few things to talk about. The Supreme Court, number one, and mainstreaming hemp. All that and more with me, Kevin Miller, on KIDO Talk Radio. And we go to Cindy in Caldwell at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Cindy.
Well, Kevin, you continue to be my literal star, but, I have to tell you, and a shout out if you're listening to the mother and her sons who came over to our train depot on Saturday, and those boys were wonderful. Had 28 people in there. I have to tell you, Calvin, I had a wonderful visitor, a dad from California with his kids. And you want to know what I saw from those kids? The left loves to engender fear in you, whether it be poor, Priscilla Giddens or something, but they love to put fear in you. And these kids were so cute because the train went off the track and I couldn't get started. And so one of the dads was helping me out, and I let the kid duck under to put the train back on the track. Really? I can do that? When you encourage kids, sure you can. You know what?
This is fascinating.
Yeah, well, we want you to get involved in things and not be fearful of doing something.
Sure.
But you have to realize when you are dealing with the left, they would love to continue no matter what it is. They love to instill fear in you. They love to do everything that they can to guilt you.
We're seeing that now with the whole idea that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned, that gay marriage is going to be overturned, that this is the biggest fight ever that's going to be overturned.
You're absolutely right, Kevin, but there's two things cooking here. They have had judicial activism, with the Abomination years in. And you know what? They will do everything they can. They don't even understand what a constitutional originalist is. So they're going to be out there. You can't really, I just say, hopefully Mr. Trump, our president now, President Trump, will just go do realizing, just like he did in Montana, no matter what he says, no matter what he does, the media, the left-wing media is totally sold out to their particular ideology. I've got enough problems with this urban renewal, seriously pushing back in Caldwell. It's something that I saw happening on Saturday because of what they opened up here. But, that said...
Well, what do you mean, what did they opened up there? What did they open up?
I left my train depot spot that I'm a friend of the depot, and I go over to our lovely Flying M, and I'm going to ask them if they want some train magazines for color books for the kids.
The Flying M in Caldwell, the infamous
yes,
Flying
the
M,
great supporters of Flying M, like Wells Fargo, the title sponsors of the Boise homosexual, lesbian, whatever have you. And what do? I go to put coloring books down
I don't think you're banking at Wells Fargo, but go ahead.
No, and the Flying M, since they were the supporters when you open up the Boise, I don't call it, Pride does come before the fall, doesn't it?
You've got about a minute left there, Pride, so go ahead.
Well, tragically, I'm looking in here and I'm thinking, are the kids going to pick up the coloring book, or are the kids going to pick up the gender fluid drag queen picture that was opened up on the counter? I mean, so I got enough problems pushing back, but I'm also just going to tell you.
What happened?
Nothing. I'm going down to talk to the mayor today.
I thought you went to the Flying M, and did you have a smackdown with them when you
of
said
course
here?
Not. A soft answer turns away wrath, Kevin.
Well, what did they
and
say?
You have to be wise as a serpent. No, I figured it out because I had to read the magazine to figure out how they got into Caldwell. We had a wonderful coffee shop here. Well, because the urban renewal people obviously left that coffee house, not realizing now you opened up the gates. Here we go, Boise. But that said, Kevin, you know what? You just have to. I say respond things in a godly manner. Yeah.
Well, God bless, Cindy. We got to run. Good morning, Dave.